Happy Saturday to everyone out there. It's so good to be here. It's so good to talk to you. I love getting back on the weekend after finishing a long week of work, getting back to the family, getting a little bit of extra sleep, and also being able to kind of gather your thoughts, because each week it is definitely a mountain to climb. And there was always trials and tribulations, which means there's things to worry about, there's things you got to think about, but also there's so many places and areas and opportunities to grow. And one thing that I think is so important that I don't think I've talked enough about is getting in the Word with small groups of people, because oftentimes, when you're stuck in your own thoughts, you only listen to your feelings and your emotions and your situation. You don't always get a bird's eye view or a wise counseling perspective of what's going on. And so this past week, I've actually really focused more on the small group of guys that I'm with, and going through verses in the Bible that we've talked about. And one verse or one book that we're going through right now is Colossians. And so I really wanted to share some of the verses that we went through this week and talk about them and how I think they apply to this week and some of the crazy stories going on. There are some stories I want to talk about. There's also some fun stuff I'm going to get into. Specifically, one of the most popular trailers in the world right now, Spiderman. And that trailer has broken the internet almost. And I do want to talk about it. And this will actually be the first time I've ever listened to it or watched it. I promise. I've never watched this trailer. I'm going to watch it for the first time live. So I don't have any notes, nothing like that. But first, before we get into that, I want to get in the Word first. And this was some of the verses that popped up this week as I was talking to this group of guys. It's Colossians 1:18. It says, "He is also the head of the body, the church, and he is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he himself will come to have the first place in everything." And all of us as believers, we're like, God is first, Christ is first. But how many of us actually live that out is a totally different story, because it's so difficult to actually wrap your head around Christ being first in everything. And it's something we should always strive for. But one thing that stuck out to me was that at the very beginning of this, where it says that he is the head of the body, the church. First, God is first. That's it. It's not a pastor. It's not a priest. It's not a cultural movement going on. He is the head. He is Christ himself. It doesn't matter what your pastor says. It doesn't matter what your priest says or whatever. Christ is the head. That's it. No matter what institutions pop up or, denominations, that is it. This is him first and everyone else. We're all stumbling towards him. And so that was the first thing that stuck out to me in that verse. The second thing was that he conquers all. And yes, he conquers every situation. He conquered death itself. So when people come to you with these persuasive arguments, maybe, that does sound like a terrible situation. Am I going to bend my morality around that? Because that's a terrible situation we can empathize with, but is that going to change reality or my perspective? No, he has conquered all. Yeah, that sounds empathetic, but no. The word of God is true. I don't care how sweet it sounds to indulge someone's delusions, or maybe we should legalize this because this one unfortunate situation happened. No, what Christ said is true. And if someone does unfortunately suffer in this world, their reward will be so much more in heaven. We do have to have a perspective of that. And that is one of the verses that really stuck out to me this week. Another one was Colossians 2:10. As we were going through Colossians, there's a theme here. It says, "And in him you have been made complete, and he is the head over all rule and authority." He completes us. And like I said before, that is something it's a constant theme in Colossians especially. But he can comfort you no matter if you are standing alone. He is the one that's going to complete us, not having any type of affirmation on Twitter or Facebook or in class when you don't speak up or whatever. Yes, it is difficult to stand alone, but he alone is going to complete you, not compromising here or there. It is going to be found in him. And he is the leader. He is the reason. He is the logic. He is the rule over everything. The reason things are true are because of him. And we need to have that perspective. There's that also the motif of him being the head of everything, which is the mind, the reason, how you can logically work your way through these different situations as people, throw out these narratives or throw out these scripts, and you need to go off screen. But wait, I know this is not true. I know this is what they're telling me, but these situations and the evidence presented does not line up with the story they're telling me. And God gave us reason. He's the head. He's the one that gives us this, so we can navigate these difficulties as people lie or twist the truth. I think that is so important, and we do need to fall back on him for that. And so I want to encourage you this week as you're going through these different situations in your own lives, at work or at school or whatever, that God is sovereign. He knows, and he is the reason. Even if you're standing alone, he will comfort you, and he is enough. Great segue into, the Spider-Man trailer. I couldn't find a smooth segue for that. That was a pretty tough one, going from Jesus to Spider-Man. I will say, because I grew up with the first Spider-Man, and I believe it was in 2000, with Tobey Maguire. Groundbreaking movie. It was almost the reason for every single movie you see today. I think you can trace it back, honestly, to X-Men 1. I think it was a little bit better. And that was how we got all the superhero movies that were quality today. But the first one was great. The second one's a phenomenal film. And now they've done this new series with Tom Holland as the young Spider-Man. I have not seen this trailer. I do want to see this and give my take. And I'll tell you why I think the first one was good. And then I'll, also react to this trailer. Let's take a look. See if it's as good as everyone says it is. Let's see here.
Ever since I got bit by that spider, I've only had 1 week where my life has felt normal. That was when you found out.
When you botched that spell where you wanted everyone to forget that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, we started getting some visitors. From every universe. Hello, Peter. You're not Peter Parker.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
There are others out there. We need to send them back. So, Scooby-Doo this crap.
All this is kind of your mess. I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Please, Scooby-Doo this crap.
You're flying out into the darkness to fight ghosts.
What do you mean?
They all die fighting Spider-Man. It's their fate. I'm sorry, kid.
Yeah, me too.
Don't.
Look, there has to be another way!
There isn't. They're a danger to our universe.
You're not gonna take this away from me.
Peter, you're struggling to have everything you want while the world tries to make you choose.
This is all my fault. I can't save everyone. What's happening?
They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them.
December 17th, exclusively in movie theaters. Tickets on sale November 29th. Spider Monday.
Interesting. Well, I will say, okay, so first off the bat, they're bringing everybody back. Not just from the first series with Tobey Maguire that was so good, but they're also bringing people back from the one with, what's his name? The guy from The Social Network. That was great, actually. It's a shame that his series ended with Jamie Foxx's Electro that came up. But I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But he was actually a great Spider-Man, too. They've cast those very well. I'm not a big fan of Tom Holland, actually, because I don't like children in the role of heroes like this. Specifically because you can't really put them in any type of real jeopardy where it's it doesn't ground it the same way, in my opinion. However, it does worry me a little bit that you have, of course, Mary. I hate when you have to suspend belief unnecessarily in movies, because you can create a world where, like, obviously, like Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he has these abilities, and we buy the fact that he can take the heat, he can do these things, he can face off with these people because he has a unique set of abilities that allows him to do this. What is not believable is when characters, whether it's Mary Jane or anyone else, decides to mouth off to someone who is not even in their same world. And it's like, oh, we're just going to make a political point of, being strong or whatever. It's very annoying, and it takes you out of the world because you have to suspend more than just the fact that we're in a galaxy far, far away. Now we have to pretend that people that aren't even heroes, they don't have these abilities, like somehow do, and they get a pass, or there's not a normal reaction that you would expect from the person that does have power. It's very, very annoying when they do that. But the trailer, great. Dr. Otto Octavius, I hope everyone gets to watch like the first one and the second one. The second one's a great movie. The second Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire, that's where Dr. Octavius is in that. That's a great movie. It's exciting to see him come back. The Green Goblin with William Dafoe is phenomenal. You even saw Sandman from the third one, and then you saw Jamie Foxx coming back. That's going to be a very expensive movie. I do want to see that only because it's going to be such a spectacle. I have no idea if they're going to keep the story true. One of the things I wanted to mention, one of the reasons why I loved the first one so much is because you have someone that is a hero in spite of all their circumstances. And what do I mean by that is that Peter Parker in the first Spider-Man, he has every reason to be resentful and hate the world and hate his environment. He's had his family, he had his parents ripped from him, okay? He's an orphan. He's living with his aunt and his uncle. So he could lean on that resentment and that hate. And then he also is bullied. He's abused. So then he could also be like, a perpetual victim of like, oh, I'm just like, the world just is what it is and I don't want to save it and all this kind of stuff. But he knows there is good in the world and he believes that. He's even, he's poor in the cartoon. He's not like wealthy, but he gets these abilities, and instead of harboring resentment and instead of propping up this weird worldview where he's going to try to fight for people that are, oppressed, he just goes after actual evil in the world. It's not, and then he learns from these situations. And then even in the first one, there's this great lesson that happens where he sees someone that did wrong to him. And, he was kind of a bully, and he allows that guy to get robbed and mugged because it's going to make him feel good at the time. And because of that, because he compromised in that way, he loses the most important person in his life. And it's such a great example of how weak and stupid the current ideology is. Oh, it's just the oppressed versus the oppressors or whatever, or like everyone's a victim or whatever. Everyone, that's what's so great about Spider-Man. He's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like everyone can be a hero. Everyone can put the burden on themselves. Everyone can live better. And so I hope they keep that same lesson in the new Spider-Man series, or in this No Way Home one with this new Spider-Man. That I still, like I said, he's fine. He's just not my favorite per se, but he's still fine. In other news, in political news, that's not entertainment news. I actually had a very interesting week where I was able to meet Congressman Jim Jordan. Some of you guys may know him. He's a really great guy. He came into the office of the Daily Wire. He's one of my favorite congressmen. He's been speaking out on a lot of different issues. Currently, he's on I believe, the Judiciary Committee in Congress. He was actually a two-time NCAA wrestling champion, which is pretty awesome. And he came in, and I got to hang out with him. If you haven't listened to any of his speeches at Congress, they're very good. I highly encourage you to do so. And if you haven't, here's one right now. And I hope this also lets you know kind of what's going on in the world today. This was very recent. This is 2 days ago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On October 21st, the Attorney General of the United States was in front of this committee and made this statement, quote, "I could not imagine any circumstance where parents are labeled domestic terrorists." One problem with that statement. The day before he said that to this committee, the House Judiciary Committee, the day before, there was an email sent to FBI agents around the country stating just the opposite. Email sent from the Counterterrorism Division of the FBI, treating parents, labeling parents, categorizing parents as a threat tag for simply showing up at school board meetings and speaking their mind.
How shocking is that? And this is a couple days ago. And what I thought about when I saw this clip and I kind of knew more about what was going on with Merrick Garland, who was almost in the Supreme Court, shockingly enough, is how, unfortunately, politics affects our lives, and how when you grow up, you kind of you gain a new perspective. For me personally, I kind of got into the mindset, which I know a lot of people have, which is, I can't really do anything to change this, so why am I going to worry about it? Like, you can't change politics. It's bigger than you. It's not important. You can bury your head in the sand and just enjoy your life. And I have friends that go on, vacations or on a movie set and they come back and it's like, oh, it's so relaxing because I didn't hear about any like the craziness going on. I'm like, yeah, that's great. But unfortunately, reality is still happening around you. And even if you're on vacation, even if you're on like a nice movie set, unfortunately, these things are still happening. The reality is that the attorney, I believe the attorney general is what Mary Garland is now, was targeting parents as terrorists for speaking out on their school board meetings because their kids were being taught CRT and crazy race, sexual gender theories. And I can't even read them on Facebook right now. Please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, by the way. If we get to 1,000 subscribers, I can live stream there and I can talk about more stuff. Please go do that now. But that was happening. That's reality. And they were using the FBI to label parents as terrorists. This should send chills up your spine. And it's great to like take a vacation and also have perspective and, make sure you focus on the word first and God first and your family. But to not forget about the world around you and how you can influence it, because we cannot have people like this in power. Because one day you're going to wake up and try to preach the gospel or try to teach your kids truths or object to the fact that your kids are being taught these different things, and you're going to be thrown in jail and be looking at this through iron bars because it was just easier not to think about it or easier to ignore it. It happens. Like this is being talked about at Congress, and it really, really, really bothered me to think about that. Yeah, it kind of woke me up because we get in those kind of, college stages where you think you're, really wise and prophetic, like, oh, you can't legislate morality, and oh, you only like choose who you love or something. Like there's not some like type of we're not spiritual beings that, God guides us or we have a higher purpose or anything like that. It's just like whatever you feel like, No, like all laws legislate morality, which is like ridiculous to think about, but it's kind of this postmodern idea where you can't just pass a law and make people good. Like, no, but they can act better, like literally every single law is legislating morality. But we just want to make sure we legislate good laws. We need to ban good things because the real world is happening all around us. Another great example of the real world happening all around us was a viral video by another congresswoman. And these congress people are doing a great job right now, who is going off about the I believe it was the January 6th commission, but she just like throws out a bunch of facts that is shocking to a lot of people because you would not have heard this anywhere else.
Democrat policies are so pathetic and have done so poorly that the left has nothing else to do but troll the internet looking for ways to get offended and then try to target members and strip them of their committees. This is a dumb waste of the House's time. But since the Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, shall we? The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists. A Democrat chairwoman incited further violence in the streets outside of a courthouse. And then the cherry on top, my colleague and 3-month presidential candidate from California, who is on the Intelligence Committee, slept with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy. Let me say that again. A member of Congress who receives classified briefings was sleeping with the enemy. This is unacceptable.
How many of you think that those things are true? That people on committees of power would be praising terrorists, possibly marrying their brother, sleeping with Chinese spies. How many people think that that could possibly be true? Unfortunately, these things are happening. Like, it's shocking. I'm not going to go into the Ilhan Omar stuff because it's so complicated, but it is almost 100%. I mean, even like mainstream left-wing outlets are like, yeah, it looks like she definitely forged or like married her brother for citizenship stuff, and there was almost certainly financial fraud going on as far as campaign funds to her other husband. It is absolutely nuts. And the cherry on top with Eric Swalwell, who was actually running for president. He was actually on stage running for president, was with a Chinese spy, Fang Fang, who has now disappeared. This should frighten everybody. We so get lost in like, oh, there's no actual evil going on in the world. Oh, like countries don't have aspirations of doing what they've done every single century, like every, 60 years, the third turning, of trying to make a move and impose their political will on the rest of the world and navigate themselves strategically on international scenes. No, they are sacrificing blood and money with spies all over the country. I mean, this is just, it's not even Eric Swalwell. Not even just Eric Swalwell with Fang Fang. That's a real thing that happened. It's also Dianne Feinstein, another senator from California, had a Chinese spy who worked for her as a driver for decades. And they finally like caught this guy too. It's just, it's so much easier to just pretend like these things are not happening. But the fact that countries are willing to spend blood and treasure, willing to train up their own people to go and insert them in another country for decades and pay for this and work this out, means there has to be a reason. There is intent, okay? And it's not going to help if we just bury our heads in the sand. It's like, these people should not be on committees. Like, it's okay if someone tricks you at some point. You know, like, I mean, we all fall short of the glory of God. Maybe something happened. Maybe Fang Fang was just really seductive and Swalwell made a mistake. However, he should not be on the intelligence committee then. Like, I'm sorry, you don't get to do that, okay? If people are still dumb enough to vote you in, like, that's their prerogative, I guess. But you should not be privy to all the information that they would have on these different committees. That's shocking. That is crazy. We need to actually take action and do something about this. And here's a great example of doing something about it. This week, another video went viral that I have to show you. And it was the slippery slope that we've all been talking about for a while. Is if you normalize certain behaviors, then other things are going to be normalized next. Meaning it's like the slippery slope. Okay, this is something that conservatives have talked about for a while and got made fun of for. Well, now the slippery slope has slid down to minor attracted people. Let this professor who teaches people, who's paid to teach people, explain what that is.
I use the term minor attracted person or MAP in the title and throughout the book for multiple reasons. First of all, because I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. And MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term MAP. They've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile. Sure. A lot of people, when they hear the term pedophile, they automatically assume that it means a sex offender. And that isn't true, and it leads to a lot of misconceptions about attractions toward minors. I've definitely heard the idea that you brought up, though, that the use of the term minor attracted person suggests that it's okay to be attracted to children. But using a term that communicates who someone is attracted to doesn't indicate anything about the morality of that attraction.
Okay. It doesn't say anything about the morality of that attraction. This is a professor trying to normalize being attracted to children. Like, oh, well, it just creates a stigma, and that's not healthy. We don't want to make people feel bad about things that they're sinning or struggling with, right? Like, that would be wrong. Like, no, it is merciful to correct people. If someone has food in their teeth, it is the nice thing to do to let them know, hey, you have food in your teeth, you need to address this. If you're struggling with something that is so evil and so sinful as being a minor attracted person, like this lunatic who's a college professor is saying, it is not good to say, well, we don't want you to feel bad about that. Like, that would be the real problem, right? Not trying to correct you or help you, be like, no, or remove you from society because you're an absolute threat. That would be bad, right? And then we have this weird idea now today where it's like, oh, God would love, and, obviously, you love anyone that you're trying to correct. Like, you love your children who you're disciplining. You love your friend who is struggling with something that he shouldn't be struggling with, and you try to pull him the other direction. Be like, dude, you're wrong. This is terrible. Like, do not do this. You can still love that person and correct them, okay? It is just this weird, stupid, progressive idea that we need to allow all things because Christ is love. And Christ also, there is a lot of consequence. There's a lot of duty. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible as well. And yes, Jesus is love, which and it's obviously because there'd be redemption now. Because of that, there's redemption for everybody. However, we do need to take action and say no to a lot of this craziness. Like, this is nuts. And fortunately, some good stuff did come out of this, as you can see. He was fired. He'd been put on leave. Okay, let me remove myself from the screen so you can see it. This professor was put on leave, as he should be. This person should not be paid to teach kids about being a minor attracted person. okay, and normalizing that. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. Thank goodness we canceled this person. We need to cancel all these terrible ideas. We need to cancel CRT. We need to cancel these lunatics taking over churches and telling people that it's okay to be a minor attracted person. They need to be gone, okay? There needs to be a standard, and yes, we will love you. You can live here, but these are the rules, okay? These are the standards. You're not allowed to talk about that kind of stuff. You're not allowed to teach people that kind of stuff. And I think that would be a much healthier place for us to be. In other news, this has been going on. The Rittenhouse case, okay? And I know a lot of people have heard about the Rittenhouse case. A lot of people have heard mainly from the mainstream media or Twitter or Facebook what's been going on. I'm not going to get into the weeds about, all the details until I have to. I just want to explain the most prevailing narrative is that, Kyle is a racist white supremacist, and this is an example of white supremacy somehow, and that he was, looking for trouble because he's, racist or whatever. This is MSNBC's host, Joy Reid, talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. And I just want you to think about, I'm going to play it first, and then I'm going to explain why I want to address this, not just whether Kyle was right or wrong, but more about the way that it's being presented.
So it's Kyle Rittenhouse trial. It reminded a lot of people of something, I just can't remember what it was. Oh, the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, in which Brett Kavanaugh, who had been accused by a high school friend of committing sexual abuse of her, cried his way through the hearings to make him a permanent member and Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And his tears turned out to be more powerful than the tears of Christine Blasey Ford, which were the tears of an alleged victim. But in America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, Green Waterworks. White men can get away with that too. And it has the same effect. Even as the right tries to politicize the idea that masculinity is being robbed from American men by multiculturalism and wokeism, they still want to be able to have their tears.
How gross is that? Like one of the head people of MSNBC talking about that. Here's how you can know that she's absolutely wrong and is a terrible, terrible, horrible human being that needs to be called out at every single turn. Is that first she's just saying, well, this guy, Brett Kavanaugh, cried and Christy Blasey Ford cried and we picked him over her, which is nuts, first of all. It doesn't even occur to her that maybe there is an actual truth. Like we talked about, like God gives us reason. Like there was a truth, there's a set of circumstances and facts that showed that one person was 100% right and one was wrong. She immediately goes to this superficial idea, this like boogeyman, this religion of, well, the only reason this could have happened is not because of reality and logic and reason. It must only be because of this situation that I've invented in my mind of this patriarchal racism that I can apply to literally anything with no facts, no nothing. Because these are the same people that praised Jacob Blake and raised money for him, and Kamala Harris famously took photos with him. Jacob Blake was the man who was shot in the back by police officers in Kenosha that sparked these riots in the first place. He was given millions of dollars, okay, for this. And now you don't hear about the case because the reason he was there was because he had assaulted his girlfriend. I can't even say what he did to her, but let me just say that he assaulted her that morning, had a restraining order against him. She, this black woman, called these white police officers to help her because he was stealing her children. He put them in the car. He actually fought the cops. They tried to tase him. He ripped them out, walked over with a knife, went back to the car with the kids, and as they're struggling to pull him out of the car, then they shot him in the back. That's what happened. That's why you can't see, because like these cops were absolute heroes, and this woman is like, why are you praising this lunatic who was killing my kids and assaulted me, or stealing my kids and was assaulting me? That's what happened there. But Joy Reid can't handle the facts of the situation. She just has to make up some obscure lie and lie about it. And here's why you know her, even that racist idea in her head is an absolute lie from the pit of hell, okay? Because if you just switch these situations, what would happen? What would happen if on the right you had someone who was going to help this city, who was called in to protect where he worked, because all this stuff with the Rittenhouse thing was a total lie. He actually worked in the city. He had the gun in that city. It was not crossing state lines. All of it is a lie. All of it was thrown out in court, but no one would pay attention to it. If you had switched the situation, Kyle Rittenhouse was black and he was a young man who was protecting his city as Black Lives Matter and Antifa lunatics were chasing him down the street and defend himself, there's not a single person on the right, no, not a single conservative who would have changed their mind based on the race of the situation. Even in this situation, it was 3 white guys that Kyle shot, okay? 2 people were killed. One was a convicted pedophile. One had a long rap sheet. No one also had a long rap sheet of terrible things. If you had switched the race in those situations, nothing would change as far as the conservative Christian narrative, like the traditional narrative. Like not a single host would have said this kind of nonsense that Joy Reid did. None. That's how you know that her world is a lie. She's wrapped up in one thing that cannot change when the truth happens around us at all times. Like it's just wild to think about. Like literally switch the races in your head. I wouldn't defend Jacob Blake if he was white in that situation. And if Kyle Rittenhouse was black, I'd be defending him to the wall as well. It's a lunatic idea that they're stuck in. It's racist. It is evil. And this is how thin that world is. Just not even in the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, because what they say is, he showed up there with the gun at this peaceful Black Lives Matter protest. Here's the mainstream media, okay, trying to cover these Kenosha riots that Kyle was at, that's been in the news. This is how they covered these riots during this.
What you're seeing behind me is one of multiple locations that have been burning in Kenosha, Wisconsin over the course of the night.
Fiery but mostly peaceful protest.
Jacob Blake
fiery but mostly peaceful protest.
7 times
Look at that.
by a police officer. And what you are seeing now, these images come in stark contrast to what we saw over the course of the daytime hours in Kenosha and into the early evening, which were largely peaceful demonstrations in the face of law enforcement.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly, but fires have been started.
Like, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe the reality, the real world, the truth of what's going on. It's just, I know I'm standing behind this building that's blowing up behind me, but just believe me, okay? Believe me. Christ is the head, okay? Christ is the head, the truth. He is the one that gives us reason and logic. And please just put yourself in different shoes. Switch the situations around. Do not believe these insane narratives that people are throwing out at you. No matter, and please, I'm not going to go through the whole Rittenhouse timeline because it's just exhausting and it's so blatant. And Kyle Rittenhouse is about to be one of the richest men in America. If he needs to sue every single one of these outlets into oblivion. Every single MSNBC host, every single CNN host that was claiming he was a white supremacist who crossed state lines with a weapon, all these certifiable factual lies that have nothing to do with it was completely fabricated. I hope he takes every single one of these people to the cleaners, rips them of all of their money, because there is a consequence, okay? You cancel these people. You cannot behave like that. You can't smear and ruin someone's life for your own political agenda, for your own narrative. You cannot do that. Just like you can't teach kids that pedophilia is okay. You need to be removed from your college campus. It's just so frustrating. God gave us all reasons. God gave us all the ability to reason, and to have logic. And we need to apply this to this mad world around us, okay? Do not just believe what the mainstream is telling you. Do not just believe the first empathetic story that on its face, this sounds terrible. This is awful. Maybe I should change my entire worldview. Maybe everything that I've been told in the Bible is a lie because I've heard this one sad story with no context or what the situation is. Please do not fall down that hole. Please, I pray that everyone gets into the Word this week, and I hope that Colossians was as much of a revelation to you as it was for me this week. And hopefully next week I'll have more good stuff to talk about, and another trailer review, because honestly the Spider-Man trailer looks really fun and looks really, really awesome. I'm Ben Davies, and that is Off Script.